You keep saving broken men to feel powerful, but every rescue brands you exploitable, predictable, and weak in a hierarchy that only respects ruthless selection. You were conditioned to believe that strength rescues weakness. That power proves itself through protection, that if you are capable, you are responsible. That narrative sounds noble. It is strategically fatal. In competitive environments, every action is interpreted through hierarchy. When you repeatedly rescue failing men, you are not demonstrating dominance. You are signaling alignment. You are attaching your name, your time, your credibility to their incompetence. Hierarchy does not reward effort. It evaluates association. If you consistently involve yourself in damage control, people stop seeing you as powerful. They start seeing you as maintenance, a manager of dysfunction, a handler of liabilities, the strong one who can deal with it. That is not authority, that is containment work. The savior delusion is built on ego disguised as morality. You tell yourself, I'm different. I can handle him. He just needs guidance. No one else understands him. What you're really saying is, I need to be the exception. Rescuing chronic failures gives you a temporary superiority high. You feel composed while they panic, competent while they spiral, structured while they collapse. But here is the inversion. The moment you step in to stabilize someone who refuses to stabilize himself, you enter his gravity field. Now your energy is redirected. Your time is allocated. Your reputation is partially fused with his outcomes. In dominance hierarchies, perception compounds. If he fails publicly and you were his defender, observers make a quiet adjustment. You misjudged. You tolerated weakness. You invested poorly. You do not only carry your own performance, you carry your endorsements. And hierarchy watches endorsements closely. Weak men survive by proximity to stronger men. That is evolutionary strategy. They attach upward. They borrow protection. They absorb reflected credibility. The savior mistake is believing you are using them to display leadership. In reality, they are using you to extend their survival window. You think you are lifting. Often you are subsidizing. There is a difference between developing raw talent and repeatedly rescuing predictable failure. Talent improves under pressure. Chronic failure resists pressure and seeks cushioning. The savior confuses the two. He cannot tolerate watching someone fall, not because he is compassionate, because he is uncomfortable with detachment. Detachment feels cold. Intervention feels powerful. But power is not measured by how many broken systems you can prop up. Power is measured by how selectively you allocate reinforcement. Strong structures do not carry weak beams indefinitely. They remove them. If you repeatedly rescue a man who avoids responsibility, repeats self-sabotage, blames systems, luck, or others, requires constant emotional stabilization, you are not mentoring. You are enabling a pattern, and patterns are contagious. Other observers begin calculating. If he tolerates that, he will tolerate more. If he invests in that, his standards are adjustable. Adjustable standards reduce perceived rank. You believe rescue builds loyalty. Sometimes. More often, it builds expectation. The rescued individual does not think, he saved me. He thinks, he will save me again. That expectation becomes leverage against you. The savior delusion collapses when you understand one principle. Every rescue is a signal of your boundaries, a signal of your standards, a signal of what you will carry. And in competitive environments, what you carry defines what you become. You are not judged by your intentions. You are judged by your tolerances. The man who rescues everyone becomes predictable. The man who selects carefully becomes sovereign. This chapter was not about morality. It was about structure. You do not rise by absorbing weakness. You rise by filtering it. Failure is rarely accidental. Occasional defeat is normal. Strategic incompetence is not. There is a difference between a man who loses while adapting and a man who loses while repeating. One is sharpening under pressure. The other is rehearsing collapse. When you rescue the second type, you enter a hidden contract. He may not say it, you may not see it, but it forms immediately. The contract states, "You will compensate for what I refuse to correct." That is the psychology of chronic failure. He does not want transformation. He wants insulation. Insulation from consequence. Insulation from exposure. Insulation from discomfort. And if you are capable, disciplined, stable, you become the perfect insulator. Understand the mechanism. Chronic failure survives through redistribution of cost. He makes poor decisions. You absorb the fallout. He avoids preparation. You over-prepare to cover him. He collapses under pressure. You stabilize the situation. Over time, the hierarchy shifts in a subtle but dangerous way. You believe you are in control because you are stronger, but he begins controlling your bandwidth. Your time narrows. Your focus fragments. Your energy is spent maintaining equilibrium instead of expanding power. This is not charity. This is resource extraction. Predatory dynamics do not always look aggressive. Sometimes they look helpless. Helplessness is one of the most sophisticated forms of manipulation because it triggers protection instincts. It activates responsibility. It makes refusal feel immoral. But in competitive ecosystems, misplaced protection is weakness. There are men who fail once and learn, and there are men who fail repeatedly and recruit. The second type is not seeking solutions. He is seeking a stabilizer. You must recognize the psychological tells. He always has an explanation. He always has a justification. He always has a reason why this time is different. He always needs just one more chance. Notice the pattern. Responsibility is external. Redemption is promised. Correction is postponed. When you step in, you interrupt the only force that creates evolution. Consequence. Without consequence, there is no recalibration. And without recalibration, there is no growth. By rescuing him, you freeze him in his current form. You become part of the architecture that keeps him mediocre. Now understand the deeper inversion. Each time you rescue him, observers adjust their perception of you, not him. They expect him to fail. They did not expect you to attach yourself to it. Association is evaluation. In war, alliances signal alignment. In business, partnerships signal standards. In social hierarchies, proximity signals tolerance. If you consistently attach upward, you rise. If you consistently attach downward, you sink. Not because of morality, because of gravity. Failure has gravity. It bends perception around it. You cannot stand too close to repeated incompetence without absorbing some of its distortion. This is why disciplined men are selective with proximity. They do not publicly defend unstable individuals. They do not repeatedly fund poor judgment. They do not emotionally invest in those who avoid self-correction. Not because they lack compassion, because they understand leverage. Your time is leverage. Your endorsement is leverage. Your emotional energy is leverage. When you distribute it to the wrong men, you dilute your own structure. And here is the brutal layer most men refuse to confront. Some failures subconsciously resent their rescuers. Your stability exposes their chaos. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your results expose their stagnation. Resentment grows beneath gratitude. And one day, when it is strategically convenient, they will distance themselves or blame you to reclaim psychological comfort. You will be left having invested time, protection, reputation with no return. The hidden contract was never balanced. You were giving reinforcement. He was extracting. So failure is not a single species. It wears masks. It adapts. It performs. If you cannot classify it, you will be captured by it. Here are the 5 archetypes you must refuse to rescue. Not because you are cruel, because you are strategic. 1. The perpetual victim. This man does not fail. He is failed by the system, by his family, by the market, by timing, by betrayal. There is always a villain. It is never him. His language reveals him. It wasn't my fault. They set me up. No one gave me a chance. Rescuing him feels righteous. You feel like justice. But the victim identity is addictive. If he accepts responsibility, he loses his narrative. If he loses his narrative, he loses psychological protection. So he won't. When you support him, you reinforce the story that he has acted upon, never acting. You become another chapter in his mythology of oppression. He will not rise. He will gather sympathy, and sympathy does not build rank. 2. The emotional reactor. This one collapses under pressure, anger, impulsive decisions, public outbursts, defensive spirals. He burns alliances. You try to repair them. He speaks recklessly. You clarify his meaning. He destabilizes rooms. You stabilize them. At first you think you are mentoring him, but volatility is not ignorance. It is lack of internal governance. A man who cannot regulate himself cannot hold structure. When you repeatedly shield him from consequences, you do not strengthen him. You remove the pressure that would force discipline. Hierarchy distrusts volatility more than weakness. Do not anchor yourself to a storm. D. The chronic dependent. He is intelligent, capable, even charismatic, but never autonomous. He needs direction, needs reassurance, needs guidance, needs confirmation. Every decision roots through you. At first, this flatters your ego. You feel important, respected, necessary. But dependence is a slow tax. Your time fragments. Your cognitive load increases. Your expansion slows. He does not want mastery. He wants supervision. If you build him up, he attaches harder. If you pull back, he panics. This is not partnership. This is tethering. A sovereign man does not cultivate permanent dependence. He builds peers or walks alone. 4. The reputation liability. This is the most dangerous one. His failures are visible. Public conflicts, ethical gray zones, broken promises, burned bridges. You think you can vouch for him. You believe proximity will rehabilitate him. It won't. Perception does not isolate behavior cleanly. It blends. If you consistently align with compromised individuals, observers question your judgment, not just his. Character. Selection operates silently. You are filtered not just by what you do, but by who you stand beside. Reputation is slow to build and fast to stain. Never gamble yours on someone who has already demonstrated disregard for theirs. 5. The strategic underperformer. This one is subtle. He is not incompetent. He is inconsistent. He shows flashes of brilliance, moments of strength, temporary discipline, just enough to convince you he has potential. But potential without sustained execution is theater. He performs improvement in cycles, failure, apology, renewed effort, temporary progress, relapse. You mistake fluctuation for evolution. He survives on promise. And every time you step in, you reset the cycle. The truth is brutal. You think this principle is harsh. It isn't. It is historical. Civilizations are not built by rescuing the chronically undisciplined. They are built by selecting for resilience. Look at war. An army does not promote the soldier who panics under fire. It does not restructure its standards to accommodate emotional instability. It removes him from the front line. Why? Because volatility under pressure spreads. Weakness is contagious when rewarded. In political courts, rulers did not surround themselves with men who required constant reassurance. They selected those who could hold silence, men who could absorb insult without flinching, men who could execute without needing applause. This was not cruelty. It was survival. Human systems are pressure filters. Pressure reveals structure. When famine hits, who remains stable? When resources shrink, who hoards? When alliances fracture, who collapses? Selection does not ask for your opinion. It observes performance. And here is the part modern culture hides. Compassion without boundaries destabilizes hierarchies. If a leader consistently shields the incompetent, high performers leave. If a dominant man repeatedly rescues emotional liabilities, disciplined men distance themselves. Because structure seeks efficiency. Imagine a war room. Maps on the table. Candles burning low. Decisions that will shape survival. One man hesitates. One reacts emotionally. One blames circumstances. One needs constant reassurance. How long before they are excluded from critical decisions? Not dramatically, quietly. That is how deselection happens. Now look at business. Investors do not repeatedly fund founders who burn capital through poor judgment. They cut losses. They reallocate. They do not call it cruelty. They call it discipline. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The men you keep rescuing are being filtered by others already. You are the last emotional investor in a declining asset. Every time you intervene, you override a natural sorting mechanism. Nature does not rehabilitate the chronically fragile. It pressures them until adaptation occurs, or removal does. The social world is no different. But modern narratives confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice. They tell you, never give up on people. Support no matter what. Real strength carries others. That is half-truth philosophy. Strength can carry, but it must first decide who is worth carrying. Even predators understand this. A wolf pack does not revolve around the weakest member. It revolves around the most stable. If one repeatedly endangers the hunt, the pack adjusts. Not emotionally, structurally. Here is the deeper psychological mechanism. When you repeatedly rescue failing men, you signal that consequences are negotiable. And when consequences are negotiable, behavior does not recalibrate. You create artificial safety nets that block adaptation. Then you wonder why nothing changes. Because pressure was removed. And pressure is the architect of competence. This is not about lacking empathy. It is about understanding hierarchy. Hierarchy is not moral. It is functional. It asks one question. Can you hold underweight? If the answer is consistently no, the system redistributes importance. Rescuing someone repeatedly is not generosity. It is interference with selection, and selection, when interrupted, returns harsher later. History is filled with fallen kings who elevated the wrong men, trusted the emotional, protected the incompetent, shielded the reckless. The result? Internal decay, external attack, collapse. Power does not tolerate structural softness for long. You cannot build dominance while subsidizing fragility. You cannot rise while dragging men who refuse to rise. And you cannot demand respect while publicly aligning with chaos. The world respects restraint in association, because association reveals judgment, judgment reveals structure, structure reveals rank. This is not about abandoning every struggling man. It is about pattern recognition. Everyone stumbles. Not everyone refuses correction. If failure leads to recalibration, invest. If failure leads to excuses, withdraw. History does not rescue the weak. It records who survived. You have been trained to see withdrawal as abandonment. It isn't. It is resource allocation. Every interaction you maintain consumes energy. Every alliance you sustain occupies cognitive bandwidth. Every failing man you attempt to rescue absorbs attention that could be invested upward. Power is not built through emotional generosity. It is built through disciplined allocation. Strategic men audit where their time, loyalty, and influence go. You do not rescue these 5 kinds of failures because doing so leaks leverage. Instead, you implement withdrawal protocols, not dramatic exits, not emotional speeches, not public condemnations, silent reduction. First principle, stop over-explaining. When you disengage from a failing man, do not justify your distance. Explanation invites negotiation. Negotiation invites manipulation. You do not owe strategic reasoning to those who consistently mismanage their own lives. Stateless. Appear neutral. Redirect focus. Second principle, reduce accessibility. Failure feeds on availability. If you are constantly reachable, constantly advising, constantly correcting, you become infrastructure for someone else's incompetence. Pull back. Longer response times. Fewer meetings. No emergency emotional consultations. Watch what happens. Either they adapt without you, or they collapse without you. Both outcomes clarify reality. Third principle, reallocate upward. Most men stagnate because they invest laterally or downward. They spend hours stabilizing chaotic peers while ignoring disciplined operators who could elevate them. Strategic withdrawal frees capital, social capital, time capital, emotional capital. Redirect that upward, toward men who execute. Without it, behavior persists. If a man overspends, do not lend. If he disrespects agreements, do not renegotiate. If he creates chaos, do not mediate repeatedly. Silence forces confrontation with reality. Reality is a harsher teacher than you, and more effective. Fifth principle, detach emotionally before you detach structurally. This is critical. If you withdraw physically while still emotionally invested, you remain manipulable. You will be triggered by their struggles. You will feel compelled to intervene. You will rationalize just one more time. Emotional detachment must precede behavioral shift. You must internally accept, I am not responsible for outcomes they refuse to correct. That sentence restores sovereignty. Now understand something deeper. Strategic withdrawal will trigger reactions. The chronically failing man senses resource loss. He may accuse you of arrogance. He may label you cold. He may attempt guilt. After everything I've done, I thought you were different. So this is how you treat people. These are pressure tactics. If you collapse under them, you were never detached. Hold posture, not aggressive, not defensive. Still, remember, withdrawal is not punishment. It is filtration. You are not destroying them. You are removing yourself as a subsidy. If they adapt, respect increases naturally. If they spiral, distance was necessary. Now we address the hidden fear. What if I look disloyal? Weak men confuse loyalty with permanent access. Strong men understand loyalty is conditional on discipline. You can be loyal to values. You cannot be loyal to dysfunction. There is a difference. They fear being seen as ruthless. But here is the paradox. When you stop rescuing incompetence, your perceived value rises because others observe boundaries. Boundaries imply standards. Standards imply power, and power attracts alignment. Strategic withdrawal is not about shrinking your circle. It is about compressing it. Less noise, more structure, less chaos, more precision, less emotional drag, more upward momentum. You cannot build sovereignty while emotionally sponsoring fragility. And the moment you stop sponsoring it, something shifts. You feel lighter, clearer, more focused. That clarity is reclaimed leverage. The brutal principle is not cruelty. It is conservation. You do not rescue these 5 kinds of failures because every rescue reaffirms their patterns. Instead, you withdraw, observe, allow consequence, reallocate, preserve structure. That is how power compounds. You cannot apply this principle while still identifying as the rescuer. That identity must die, not adjusted, not refined, eliminated. The rescuer believes his value comes from being needed. He confuses indispensability with power. But being needed by weak men is not status. It is entrapment. The rescuer survives on emotional dependency. He feels significant when others struggle. He feels relevant when others collapse. Remove the collapse and he feels empty. That is the hidden addiction. You were conditioned to believe. Helping proves strength. Saving proves virtue. Carrying proves leadership. But examine the pattern carefully. Who rises faster? The man constantly stabilizing chaos, or the man building systems that do not require emergency intervention? Rescuing feels heroic. Building structure feels cold. But only one scales. The rescuer identity operates on unconscious contracts. If I'm useful, I won't be abandoned. If I fix problems, I will be respected. If I sacrifice, I will be valued. Those contracts are false. Usefulness does not guarantee respect. Sacrifice does not guarantee loyalty. Accessibility does not guarantee status. Often it guarantees the opposite. Because when you are always available, you are rarely feared. When you are always forgiving, you are rarely obeyed. When you are always stabilizing, you are rarely elevated. Execution of the rescuer identity requires 3 internal severances. First, severance. You stop equating empathy with obligation. You can understand someone's struggle without entering it. You can recognize pain without absorbing it. You can observe collapse without participating in it. Compassion does not require codependency. Second, severance. Sovereign men build self-worth on standards, not on being required. Third, severance. You stop deriving superiority from proximity to weakness. Some men unconsciously surround themselves with fragile people because it guarantees contrast. You look strong when others are unstable. You look disciplined when others are chaotic. But that is artificial elevation. Real hierarchy is tested upward. Remove yourself from environments where you are the most stable person in the room. Enter rooms where your stability is baseline, not exceptional. That shift will feel uncomfortable, because now you cannot dominate through comparison. You must compete through structure. The rescuer identity resists this. It prefers environments where it is indispensable. But indispensability in weak systems traps growth. Now comes the psychological confrontation. When you stop rescuing, silence appears. Fewer calls, fewer requests, fewer emotional emergencies. At first, this feels like loss, but it is exposure. You begin to see how much of your time was consumed by maintenance, not momentum. Maintenance feels productive. It is not. It is repetition. Momentum builds direction. Execution of the rescuer identity also changes how people react to you. Some will withdraw because your utility to them has decreased. They were attached to your function, not your character. This is filtration in motion. Others will recalibrate. They will treat you with more caution, more respect, because boundaries alter perception. You are no longer emotionally accessible on demand, and unpredictability increases leverage. Here is the ruthless truth. If your absence destabilizes someone's life, you were functioning as life support. Life support is not leadership. It is substitution. Leaders create systems that reduce dependency. Rescuers create dependency. Choose your category. The transformation will feel colder, more restrained. When the rescuer identity dies, something replaces it. Not cruelty, not isolation, precision. You become selective with investment, selective with alliances, selective with access. You are no longer available to every crisis. You are available to structure, and structure compounds. Most men will never execute this identity. They would rather feel needed than become powerful, because need offers immediate validation. Power requires delayed recognition. Now you understand the final trade. Be necessary to the weak, or become unavoidable to the strong. One inflates the ego. The other builds sovereignty. You cannot hold both. Now the separation becomes visible, not to you, to them. When you stop rescuing failures, something unsettling happens. You are no longer easy to categorize. You are no longer the stabilizer, no longer the mediator, no longer the emergency contact for men who refuse to evolve. And that shift will trigger reactions. Expect three. First, accusation. They will call you cold, detached, changed. Of course you changed. You stopped volunteering for dysfunction. Weak systems interpret boundaries as betrayal. Second, testing. Some will manufacture minor crises to see if you respond. A small financial mess, a familiar emotional spiral, a predictable, I just need your advice. They are probing, not maliciously, instinctively. They are asking, are you still accessible? Your response determines your rank. If you re-enter the pattern, the hierarchy resets. If you remain unmoved, the pattern collapses. Third, quiet recalibration. The strongest individuals in your environment will notice, not loudly, not theatrically, but they will observe that you no longer leak energy into repair work. They will see that your time is protected, your reactions are measured, your investments are selective, and they will adjust their behavior upward, because disciplined men recognize other disciplined men. Now understand the strategic layer. When you refuse to rescue failure, you are not abandoning humanity. You are reinforcing selection. Nature does not preserve incompetence indefinitely. It filters. Hierarchy does not reward emotional generosity. It rewards structural reliability. You are aligning with structure. This is where most men hesitate. They fear becoming isolated. But isolation from dysfunction is not loss. It is clarity. The noise fades. The drama reduces. The constant interruptions stop. And what replaces it? Time, focus, forward movement. But here is the elite warning. This principle must be applied with precision. Do not confuse this with cruelty. You do not humiliate failure. You do not mock weakness. You simply refuse to finance it. There is a difference. Public aggression creates enemies. Silent withdrawal creates hierarchy. The most powerful repositioning is often invisible. You stop responding immediately. You stop volunteering solutions. You stop absorbing responsibility that was never yours. No announcement, no explanation, no speech, just structural shift. And here is the final psychological inversion. You do not rise because you rescue others. You rise because you remove friction from your own trajectory. Every failure you continuously stabilize is friction. Every repeated crisis is friction. Every emotional spiral you manage is friction. Friction slows ascent. The disciplined man eliminates drag. Now consider the long-term compounding effect. 5 years of rescuing equals 5 years of maintenance. 5 years of selective investment equals 5 years of acceleration. Most men trade acceleration for approval. You now understand the cost. You are not required to save men who refuse to save themselves. You are not obligated to subsidize stagnation. You are not morally superior for carrying incompetence. You are structurally weaker. Let that settle, or become the sovereign operator who allocates resources upward. There is no middle position. Rescue culture will always praise sacrifice. Hierarchy will always reward discipline. Choose which system you serve. Most will ignore this warning. They will continue repairing the same broken structures. They will continue confusing loyalty with self-sabotage. Selection will handle them. A small minority will execute this shift fully. They will feel the discomfort, the silence, the recalibration, and then the expansion. Because when you stop rescuing failure, you finally have bandwidth to build dominance. This is not a motivational principle. It is a filtration mechanism. Now the question is no longer whether you understand it. The question is whether you are disciplined enough to apply it. If this framework resonates, you already know you are not here for comfort. You are here for position. Operate accordingly.